Hello and welcome to the football show with me, Mark, Kyle, and Imran. How are we doing, guys? How you both doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah. Not too bad, man. How was your day? What's going on?
It's been good. Just preparing. The football's going thick and fast, and
Yes,
it's soon time for the World Cup. So
indeed.
got to get all the games in, and I'm looking forward to the break.
And is that did I get that right? Is that an Argentina shirt?
It is correct. Yeah.
Is
So I
that
jumped
right?
on the opportunity because obviously
Wow.
it could turn out to be
Wow.
iconic with Messi's last World Cup.
I have to say I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. So listen, if you're joining us on our social media channels on We Global on Facebook or on our We Global Sport on Facebook, thank you so much for joining. Jump in the chat. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say as we go through the show this evening. How are you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I don't know about the rest of the country, but I think there's a flu or a cold going around quite quickly.
Oh, is there?
I'm not too sure I've avoided that. So if I look or sound kind of groggy during the show, that's why.
It's that time of the year, man. It's that time of the year, you know. So it's colds and flus, and up where you are is usually very cold. So
yes,
you might want to be very careful and see how things go. Well, let's get to it because we've got quite a lot we want to talk about this evening, and we're talking about Unai Emery. Back in the Premier League. We'll touch on Haaland and where things are and how things are going, and a little bit of a feature on two keepers that we might have some different or similar opinions on. So let's get to it. So Gameweek 13, how did that play out for you both then? Quite a few interesting fixtures. I mean, you can't really look past the one at the top there, can you, Imran?
Yeah, let's try and move on quickly from that.
No. Why should we?
It's a culmination of all the problems, all the things that are going wrong this season, starting such a young midfield with Carvalho, Elliott, and Jones all starting. Thiago out injured with, I think he had an ear infection. It's every week it's something new. So I think that weekend it was an ear infection, and then the team was not gelling right. And I think especially away from home this season we are really not getting into the rhythm. I think we're yet to win away from home in the Premier League, which is just outrageous for this part of the season.
Wow. Yeah, I thought Forest were absolutely outstanding in that game.
I agree.
They had a really, really good game, and for a team that was playing from bottom of the table, you got to say that they're starting to look as though they're getting it together. And
agreed, but at the same time, I feel like we did make it very easy for them.
Oh come on, man! You got to play it on the day, man.
Yeah, of course.
That guy Mo Salah, man. I'll tell you what.
I mean,
what a waste of time.
Honestly, that result was not on him in any sense of the.
He was so
any chance
poor,
that
man.
you get.
But we had Darwin Núñez out. We had no other striker, so we pretty much slapped Salah in the box and tried to get him some chances, but we just didn't give him any.
Poor, man, and I'm sure we'll come on to talking about fantasy league, but Salah is nowhere to be seen anywhere around my fantasy league anytime.
You finally got him out
soon. Me and thousands of managers around the world, hundreds of thousands, have decided we've had enough of more Salah. We're done with him, man.
And I can assure they'll live to regret it.
Well, we'll see. But listen, Villa smashed Brentford. We'll talk about Stevie G a little bit later. But what did you make of that performance at Villa?
They came out looking like prime Brazil. It was absolutely crazy. The thing was Brentford as well. It's not just Brentford, but an in-form Brentford as well. They're not having a bad season at all. And
no.
Villa, well, first of all, just sacked managerless Villa have just come on their home turf with fans who are, let's say, quite impatient with the football they've been seeing this season. And somehow, man, I didn't recognize that team at all. And the last Villa game I saw was that one against Forest, which I'm sure you heard enough about me saying a couple of weeks ago, because that was a disgusting performance. But man, it was like two different teams. This team playing against Brentford, it was absolutely mental.
If you were Stevie G sitting down home watching that game, he might have done. I don't know. He might have decided, let me see what he's not going to throw up this weekend. He might be just sitting there shaking your head, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think speaking to Villa fans, I think what the interim manager did, I think it's Aaron Danks, was what the Villa fans were crying out for, which is just a change in the system, which Gerrard refused to do. And I think it was a mixture of both. The players kind of gave up on Gerrard towards the end, and the system change, which caused this bounce in form.
Well, I saw John McGinn was nowhere to be found as well, which was quite an interesting move.
The Villa fans have been campaigning for that for weeks and months.
Well, they got what they asked for. And listen, if you're joining us on YouTube, by the way, we seem to have a little bit of a challenge here with our chat this evening. So if you're popping anything up, we're not going to be able to see it because it's not loading here for some reason. Fulham also last weekend, I thought, showed incredible tenacity. And why, as one of the promoted sides, actually, you know what, these guys are securing their place in this first half of the season because they look good with and without Mitrovic. So, what did you make of the? Yeah, I think so.
Really impressive stuff. I think like the job Marco Silva's doing, because they didn't go and spend lots and lots in the summer. They kept to their core, but just slowly improved with the signings that they made. And he's getting players like Willian in 2022 performing. Couldn't believe it when I couldn't believe that Willian. You'll see in the team of the week later. I couldn't believe I was saying his name in 2022 in the Premier League. It's crazy.
Willian, oh my word. anyway, the other one was I think Spurs and Newcastle, but we'll come on to that later on. But yeah, I thought it was a very good game. The games are coming thick and fast now, as you said. You know, we I think got 3 weeks now before the World Cup, and this first half of the season is going to be quite defining, I feel, because you never know what you're going to get back after, come Boxing Day when the season restarts. You never know what you're going to get back, right? So this is a really important phase of the season, I feel, to try and establish your early positions.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting point because I saw a tweet the other day that I found it quite funny but quite ridiculous at the same time, because it was a guy saying City have like the most goals, the most passes, the most clean sheets, the most chances created, and they're still not top of the league. Like,
well, it might be coming.
Well,
it might be coming, but let's hope Leicester does us a favor tomorrow. Even though I don't hold a lot of hope against that. But anyway, so welcome back. Are we saying welcome back to Unai Emery? Are we thinking this is a good move for Aston Villa?
I think it's a great move for Aston Villa. I was unsure if it was a great move for Unai Emery himself, though. I mean, I think we know what happened in his time at Arsenal. It was a bit underrated. I think some of the decisions by the board that got overruled were a bit unfair on him, and of course the media were right onto him, which I think he crumbled under the pressure a bit. He's gone out to Villarreal and done incredibly, reaching a Champions League semi-final. So there's no doubt that he's an absolutely top manager. But we know that he rejected Newcastle. Newcastle wanted him to be the fourth.
Which was a really interesting point, because you felt when that offer was made that perhaps he would have gone there, but for some reason it just didn't seem to attract him.
Yeah, and so that's why I was doubtful that he would accept Villa. When Villa were linked with his name, I was like, with all respect to Villa, I do not think they're in the position to get such a big name and such a good manager. But fair play, they've got him in, and I'm not sure.
I'm kind of glad that our chat isn't working, because I'm sure some Villa fans might have something to say about
that. Fair play to them, but he was gone from a team that were doing well in La Liga and getting into the Champions League semi-final to Villa, where he'll be lucky to break into the Conference League. So it's an interesting one, but it is a very good appointment for Villa. He is a top manager.
Well, if you look at his record, 2 French Cups, 2 French Super Cups, 2 French League Cups, 4 UEFA Cups. He is a cup manager.
Yeah.
And you got to wonder how much of that you will now start to see in terms of the way that Villa are going to be playing this coming season, and whether he's going to prioritize the FA Cup, the League Cup, etc. So we got to wait and see. But I think Unai Emery did very well for us at Arsenal, actually. He gave the likes of Martinelli and Saka and the young Smith Rowe their debuts in the side. So, you look on now, you see the team flourishing, and you think, well, actually, a lot of that is not just the Arsene Wenger legacy, but the legacy of Unai Emery and bringing these youngsters through. And I think he's come back because he feels he's got a lot of unfinished business in the Premier League.
Yeah. Well, I always imagine that it'd be to a top 6 club rather than an Aston Villa.
He's definitely a top manager, isn't he?
Yeah,
he has the caliber to manage one of those sides for sure.
Yeah, and I expect big things from him at Villa, and I think he will actually do quite well. I've got a feeling he will. So let's go into the world of fantasy, because this has been no doubt occupying your minds, both of you. Let's bring it up big there so people can see, because I want people to really understand what's going on in this league this year. Arjun is continuing to run away at the top, which is quite good. He's ahead by 16 points now, it looks like. And in fact, no, that's more than that. Yeah. He's got a 33-point gap, actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, he's slowly sneaking away. But one of the big jumps this week I thought was being Skeet, who started to move into that top 4.
Yeah.
And anybody in that 700 club now, I think is probably moving towards getting away from the rest of us, actually.
Yeah. I think we're finally seeing the top performers, getting a bit into their own, and slowly seeing a title race being formed.
It was interesting this week because that not just for our league but worldwide, that result against Liverpool and Forest completely shook up Fantasy Premier League, because like 5% of the world are starting Forest players ahead of Liverpool players, and then I think what's his name, Nico Williams, because of how cheap he is one of the most selected players in the world, but no one started him because they were playing Liverpool,
and he played the blinder.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the very, very few people that did start him and other Forest players climbed up their leagues, and it was crazy.
And I have to say, Imran, you know, all respect to you and your previous performances in fantasy, you know.
Yeah.
This season is really one that is very difficult for you, I think.
Yeah, well, I've had back-to-back top 3 finishes in the league, and then I've gone from that to this. I don't think I left the top 10 in the last 2 seasons, and then
had this been the real world, you'll be out like Gerrard.
I'm lucky that the analyzer isn't in the slideshow today, because I think you'd just see the carry on the trend of the roller coaster ride that I've been on, and I think that's led me to this week. I've taken drastic action with my FPL.
Oh wow, really?
And I've decided enough's enough, and without the use of a wild card, because I've used it up already.
Are you gonna break that here for us before the change of?
I'll give you a sneak peek, and I'll tell you that I've used, I think, 4 extra transfers, which is a minus 12. And
wow.
And well, my theory is that there's 3 games until the World Cup, and that gives you a free wild card. So it's just a 3-game shootout now. See how many points I can get for the rest of the.
Is this better work?
It's
better work.
It's interesting from my perspective, because like I've known Imran for years, and he's one of the most football smart people I know. But I was doing Fantasy Premier League long before he was, and when I introduced him to it, he was, tactics he was introducing was something I'd never seen in my entire life. And there he was with his top 4 finishes year after year, and his forward-thinking tactics sheets all on his phone. This season, it just feels like a completely different manager. Like that guy is gone.
You know what this feels like? This feels like when the reality set in for Jose Mourinho.
Season syndrome.
When the game had changed and he didn't realize actually what's going on. So I think the game has changed, Imran. And listen, I can talk. I'm sitting there in 20 seconds. There's no expectation from me. You know, everybody knows that I'm in and around that bottom half every week. But I don't feel too bad because I'm not too far off you, and I'm staying in this 600 club, middle of the 600s, but that's okay because I think I've got some work to do still in the second half of the season, but I'm okay with that. But Carl, you're flying.
Oh, well, flying, quote unquote. I mean,
well, between the 3 of us, you are.
Yeah. like I will continue to say in this show, like that 100-point gap is quite crucial for me and quite a number of players in the league this season. And Argent seems to already have almost a 100-point gap on me in game week 13. So it is like I can't remember because you tend to try and track. Paul Thorpe is the one that you tend to try and track because he's the one that tends to have a flying start out of the blocks, and you're always trying to figure out when is that moment that you're around 50 to 75 points behind the lead so that you can almost gauge where your season is going. But we're less than a third way through the season, and Arjun's already got that gap on me. So
I think these guys are taking this thing really, really seriously.
Similar to Imran, I planned a wild card for this week since like game week 9. So I've played that wild card this weekend, and I think the team is pretty good. And I was looking at a couple things, like last week before I played the actual wild card, because one thing I like to compare as seasons go on is there's a little thing, I don't know if you get it on your phone, but you do on your laptop. that compares the price of teams. It tells you how much money people have in their bank and how much their squads actually cost. And as you would expect, the higher they are in the league, the more expensive their teams are. I think Argent is nearer to like 103.2 or something like that. Wow. Mine is like 101. And like the lower down you go, that you tend to see that the less expensive they are. But
you notice he didn't call us out there.
I was kind to
we didn't get a look in because our squads are down in the Nottingham Forest end of the table, right? Fair enough. Well, look, let's examine what's going on with Arjun because he's running away with it. I don't really know what to say anymore about this guy because he had a couple of weeks off where Adam Bonham took the lead and suddenly he's just rebounded and he's staying consistent. Although I did notice that I thought his midfield let him down a little bit this week because I think they only served up about 16 points or something, and I thought that that's not really a great return for somebody who's leading the league. So Haaland saved him in game week 13, I think.
Yeah, I think
it's really just Haaland, to be honest.
True, but there's some really bold picks in there which stood out. You mentioned the midfield. The three big hitters, Rashford, Martinelli and Zaha didn't score. Then you've got Andreas Pereira with 10 points, which is just out of nowhere. And then like Carl mentioned earlier, the Nico Williams shout. Who picks Nico Williams v Liverpool? And pay dividends, exactly.
Yeah, but I felt he would probably have looked at that and felt as though, a little bit let down with that, even though he got 63 points, which is a good return. But to be honest, the majority of that is just because he happened to captain Haaland on the week where, you and I hedged Haaland a little bit and said, nah, he's not going to do anything. Not going to captain. We'll go for a differentiate. And what happens? The guy goes up and embarrasses us. What do you make of his team, Kyle?
I mean, you can see, like Imran said, like we can sit here and pick apart like why he hasn't got as many points as he would have liked to this week. But if we were looking at a squad where the points were shared a little differently, I don't think any of us would really be too shocked. Like it's a squad where you're expecting more of an average every single week. Like there's all over this team. And what's interesting is that as I said, me planning for the wild card this week, it's really interesting to see people's goalkeeper selection because me and Imran like to look at what's his name, Danny Ward. Oh my goodness, like it's really interesting. That guy, I think he's got like 3 clean sheets in a row. I don't know what on earth is happening. But like Danny Ward, all of a sudden, is one of the most picked keepers in the world. I don't know why, but it's always interesting to see people's keeper choices. I think we have a similar conversation like at a particular point every year because there's always 2 kinds of teams. There's the ones with 2 keepers who are both good, and then there's the ones with 1 keeper and what Imran likes to call a bench fodder. So
well, we've got 2 interesting keepers in the show later on, and we'll wonder how they're doing in people's teams. Actually, I'm sure we'll find out. So if we talk then between the 3 of us, Kyle, because you are leading the pack this week. I don't know if that's good or bad, but hey, you stormed away with 59 points in game week 13. Take it away. Who did it for you? I think we will.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, that point I made in the last shout out, the Newcastle players came to my aid again with Imran coming in clutch. He's a fantastic player, man. He's now he's actually now in the dream team, like the one of them midfielders with the most.
Don't
points.
Tell that to Jack Grealish.
It is interesting. Like I was one of those people with Nico Williams on my bench, so it's a tough one to watch because all of my defenders blanked except Nico Williams. Like
he's only got 5 points across the back, which is really, really low.
You were playing Southampton. I was expecting a clean. Like I brought like Saliba wasn't in my team. I brought him in for this week only because I'm playing like. And then he went.
You don't really know our history against Southampton. Our bogey side, man. They are bogey side.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I was backing you for a win against Southampton, but it wasn't to be. Your 2 City players and your Almiron has pretty much just rescued me here. It's the fact that I could have bagged 4 more points by switching Salah for Williams, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, man. But Haaland dig you out as well. No changes there. You're sticking with him as captain consistently.
It's the 2 times I've not done that this season. He's gone ahead and
yeah, I know what that's like, man.
Yeah.
In fact, both Imran and I know exactly what that's like. But I guess in Imran's case, he's got a little bit of something on me this week because look, he managed to run into second place between the 3 of us. But we'll see in a minute by how many points. But anyhow,
yeah, about time that I'm ahead of you. And yeah, I think the point about Haaland is like, if you're in the top 15, you're just better off going with Haaland. You don't need to really get a differentiator into like. I think it's the players like me and Mark who are at the bottom there that need to try.
We'll take anything, man. We'll take anything.
Exactly. So it paid great dividends for me a couple of weeks ago when we played when City played Liverpool. I took the risk and put Haaland on the bench and he blanked, which was good. But then it comes to bite me again here where I back Salah.
Mistake. That was a Haaland mistake there.
Yeah, expecting that we'd batter Forest, but of course we know that didn't happen. And overall, the team did not score at all. I think.
Well, you only picked up what? 10 points in the middle? 10 points across the middle?
Only Haaland and Pickford scored, which is unbelievable.
Half of your points have come from 2 players.
Yeah, I think Tony and Skamaka there, I've decided to go for just the premium strikers. So part of that, the hit that I took, my front 3 now is really strong for the last 3 games with Darwin, Kane and Haaland. So I'm excited for that. And really disappointing in Sterling.
I was just going to ask you, but you seem to have this commitment to Sterling every week, and he's not doing anything, man.
I finally got rid of him, man.
It's an interesting point because I was watching the Champions League game this week, and I was thinking to myself, when last did Sterling score? But I was looking like 2 minutes before the show started because we were talking about the Golden Boot, which will come up in a sec. And I was thinking, as a Chelsea fan, wait, who's our top scorer this season? And lo and behold, it's Raheem Sterling. But like, he just hasn't scored in so many games, and I'm like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's not really shone as much as you would.
He's not having the greatest of games either. It's not.
I think he'd be one that explodes under Potter. I think Potter would get the best out of him again and get him firing. But the performances that I see in the Champions League as well just led me to just get rid and call it a day on him.
Wow. So once you've given up on Sterling, I tell you what, no chance. But look, you picked me by 1 point, so let's just make sure we establish that, right? Because it was only 1 point between you and I.
Every little helps.
Even though there might be a couple of places in the table, but never mind. Well, I made the same mistake with Haaland. I decided, nah, I'm gonna stick with this guy Salah. They're playing Forest. He's bound to get a goal or an assist or something.
To be fair, though, listen, I say this every single time, and it is getting repetitive. But wasn't it a 12:30 kickoff for Liverpool?
Never back the early kickoff.
Is that the problem? The 12:30 kickoff.
Never back the early kickoff.
I'm sure I've seen him fail at 3 o'clock, at 5:30, and probably at 7:30 tomorrow night. The guy is just not there, and he, to return 4 points as my captain, I was miserable. I really wasn't expecting that. Saka against Southampton didn't have his best game either. I didn't think. Felt a little bit isolated out on the right, not really getting a lot of the ball. In fact, both him and Martinelli I thought were a little bit isolated. Eze didn't come up for me, but I just like Eze. I think he's a good player. He will turn it with goals from time to time, and the rest really is that front 3. Jesus, I think, is having a little bit of an issue with scoring.
Yeah, he's goalless.
He's going through a little bit. Yeah, he's going through a little bit of a drought that I think is hurting quite a few people's fantasy teams as well.
Yeah.
My mistake with Haaland is clear, so is many others. Yeah. And Ivan Toney, who was quite surprising because I think he's in a good, rich vein of form.
Yeah.
And again, didn't get a return. Got completely battered. So
I honestly think that people have done a straight switch for Jesus and Toney because I know for a fact the top 4 strikers are Haaland, Kane, Toney, and Mitrovic.
Yeah.
And like 7 weeks ago, Jesus was more popular than any other player in the
Yeah.
I think the differentiator that we have all missed is this guy Harry Kane, because the lousy football that Spurs are serving up, even though they are top half and top 4, Kane is still scoring a lot of goals. But when you go through people's teams, he doesn't seem to be featured quite a lot in any, quite a few players in our league. So I think we've missed a little bit of a trick on Harry. So You were calling for it, Imran. In fact, I think from the very start of the season, you were probably one of the most vocal voices saying Steven Gerrard has got to. And mind you, this is your former captain. You know, you're a Liverpool man through and through. Gerrard is one of your legends. I can't believe it, but you've got your wish.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's saying that. Oh, obviously, you might be a bit disappointed because obviously he's a Liverpool legend, but I'm actually thankful to Villa because if he had stayed at Rangers and carried on racking up leagues and doing decently in Europe, he'd be on most people's list to take over from Klopp. And this serves as a very good
timely reminder.
Yeah, timely reminder that the Premier League is just a different proposition, and he would have crumbled in the Liverpool job. So I'm happy that now FSG won't consider him.
Listen to you. How could you be happy that no one consider him? Good time or bad time at Villa? What do you reckon? 38 matches, I think, 12 wins, 18 losses. What do you think of his time at Villa?
I think overall you've got to say poor, but he was dealt a few unlucky circumstances in the fact that his main goal of the summer was to try and get Tyrone Mings out the squad. He brought in a big centre-back from Sevilla and he got injured for the season in the first 2 weeks, I think it was.
That whole Mings thing didn't seem to go very well for him, actually.
Yeah, I think the fact that he stripped him of captaincy and then had to play him every game, it was just a bit awkward in that sense. And
let's not forget the little magician that he brought in, who did a disappearing act.
I mean, they did kind of get conned by Coutinho, I think.
Oh, my
word. The fact that they spent 20 mil on him when he's 29, 30 now, I think, it is. And his Gerrard's tactics were a bit too stubborn as well. So in the end, it was a deserved sacking.
I think for the entire time he was there, he just had a problem with team selection.
Yeah.
Because even 2 weeks ago, you were hearing them the pundits and commentators going, "Oh, it was Gerrard's team selection right for this week," as if he'd been in the job for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, how much time do you need? I know technically it's still early days in the season, but it's like game week 13 now. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you just look on and you can see that things are just looking a little bit stale and tired, and you can feel the atmosphere is no longer there, and the players are no longer playing for the manager, and all of that was culminating at Villa. So it was no surprise really when he got sacked, and suddenly the players feel like they've been on leash, and going back to Brentford 4-0. So it's just one of them things. So we had a couple others who were looking likely and imminent. Rodgers seemed to have, he was imminent for us for a while, but we've kind of moved him back into likely. Still think he might get sacked, but he's not as imminent as it was before. And we've put Jesse Marsh on there, whose noises over the course of the week now seem to be like he's just expecting the sack this weekend, really.
I think that'd be a big mistake as well. I really think.
You reckon?
I think what he's done so far is good. The players he's brought in have been good. And once he gets Bamford staying fit, that's the biggest thing for
Bamford
Leeds.
Just can't stay fit, man.
Don't we have this conversation all the time?
Oh, my word.
But the fact that he doesn't have a main striker once Bamford is out is hurting him a lot. But I do think that his football is positive and long term it is a good system. I think if they stick with him, they can establish themselves.
I don't know if they're going to have the patience with him though, because they're not scoring and they're not winning. They're playing pretty good, actually.
Yeah,
I thought they played quite well against us, and they were quite unfortunate. We got away with a very difficult 3 points, but I think Leeds are strong. But when you're in a position like Marsh, you just need some results to start going away. Otherwise, you find that before the World Cup gets here, you will be out and somebody else will be in second half of the season.
I mean, if we were playing them away tomorrow, I would not be so confident of a win. The fact that we're at home makes me confident of a win, but with our away form and I really do believe Leeds are a good team. They play really good football, and especially at Ellen Road. I would be quite scared of that game.
I mean, I can't really comment because they smacked us 3-0. So that's why I'm staying so silent on this matter, because whatever I say will just backfire on me immediately.
Well, we've also moved Cooper back, even though Cooper just got a big contract handed to him. Still almost bottom of the league, which was quite refreshing to see.
Yeah.
But you still got to wait and see how much patience they will have, because if Forest are bottom in March, or bottom at the end of January, they're still going to hold their nerve and say, this is our manager, we're holding on to him.
Yeah.
And Hassan Hutel, who again at Southampton always seemed to have this period in the season where, he's going to get sacked imminently. He seemed to have bought a bit of time. He certainly got a good draw against Arsenal last weekend. And he seemed to have kind of stable things a little bit, but still looking a little bit likely.
I think Southampton are a good representation of my FPL season. They're just always all over the place. I can never put my finger on if they're in good form or bad form. It's just they never get consistency.
Even Ward-Prowse this season seemed to be a little bit off the boil. Actually, just doesn't seem to be. But that's another way of seeing exactly what's happening with Southampton. How much are you hearing about Ward-Prowse and what he's doing in games, and it just doesn't seem to be happening.
I mean, again, completely bodied us when we played. Ward-Prowse has always been an Achilles heel for me, because on Fantasy Premier League, he's that player that I really like to put in my team. But then I go, Southampton are just not that consistent, so I never put him in. And then he goes on a 3-game winning streak.
3 free kicks.
Straight up.
Assists from a corner.
Yeah. And that was, I almost brought him in a couple of weeks ago, but then I decided to put Eze in, thanks to your lovely advice.
Yeah.
And,
Eze is the man. Everybody thinks it has the man, but Eze is the man. So, FB, then look at game of the week from game week 13 was, well and truly at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really good, strong performance that we saw from Newcastle United. They're going about it very quietly. They're winning some good, tough games and surprising a lot of people. Spurs, I mean, if you look at this graphic, you can see that Spurs were a consistent threat all during the game. But when you were watching the game, you didn't feel as though they were. So it feels a little bit confusing to me, because I just feel as though there's just something that is happening at Tottenham this year, that they're in the top half of the table, in the top 4, but it just don't seem to feel right.
For me, no game has summed up Spurs more this season than their game against Nottingham Forest. They got completely outplayed by Forest, which surprised me, because it's Nottingham Forest against what? Not only is it Spurs, but it's Conte is a top manager. You're not expecting Nottingham Forest to give them any sort of a game, and yet they ran them off the park and got 0 points for it. It's just the Spurs way. Mm-hmm. And I sit here as an FPL manager, deciding to myself, do I go for any Spurs players in this team? I picked Perisic straight off the bat for 2 reasons. One, because he's a quality player, and 2, because I almost assumed that Conte, the way he is, would play him at wing back. He didn't, but he's still playing in that kind of role where he takes a lot of these set pieces. So he gets a bunch of those points for me, and because of the way Spurs play, they tend to get a couple of clean sheets. Which is why, until this game, actually, Perisic was the 3rd highest defender in that dream team I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. But in Spurs' recent form, he's disappeared, basically.
I think the problem is starting to become Conte a bit, in the sense that the way the Premier League is in this day and age, Conte's football doesn't work. It's just that the game plan of playing for like a typical Italian side, where you play really defensive and try and get a smash and grab, it's just not sustainable to win a league, or even they'll struggle, I think, eventually to get the top 4. That's why with the squad they have, they could be they should be comfortably top 4, but I think they will struggle to get it, because the way they play isn't sustainable to consistently get results. And I think eventually they will expire, especially when they play the mid-table teams that won't just sit down and roll over for them anymore. For example, Newcastle is a great example. That a lot of the lower teams have really good firepower now, and it might have worked in Italy and might have worked when he was at Chelsea, when the league was a lot poorer than it is now in terms of the depth of it. But I think nowadays it's just not going to work, and we can see how much they're struggling in Europe as well.
But put Spurs to one side for a moment. What do you think has changed at Newcastle? Because there was a lot of expectation, obviously, with all of the new investment coming in, the new manager, that people weren't sure whether this was going to be a good appointment. As we said earlier, Emery was offered the job and he turned it down. Yeah. But something has changed that has really got them fired up this season. What have you observed?
I mean, what's crazy? I mean, I think it was Imran actually that sent me this, but after that Liverpool game, I think a lot of people were worried about Newcastle because they lost their big summer signing in Isak, and then a couple of weeks later, St. Maximan got injured, and everyone was like, "Oh goodness, well, how is this going to affect Newcastle?" Those are two big players that are very crucial for this side. And since then, it's as if they were never needed for the team. You know, it's got to the point where those two players are going to struggle to, like, I'm not sure if they're going to struggle to get back into the side, but it's how Newcastle now fit them into this very, very well drilled team. Like all of the goals and all of the wins and all the points that Newcastle are securing are very much deserved. Like, they're not one of those sides that just get points, you know, because of how the game flowed, and it's just happened to get 1 point. They're going out and fighting for every single goal that they get, and they're playing some quality football, man.
They are. They're very, very impressive. And the guy that we've got in the graphic, the Almiron, looks completely transformed.
I've never seen such a turn of form from a player that was struggling so much in the 4 years that he's been here, and he's just an absolutely different player now.
Yeah, he just looks hungry. He looks as though he's got something to prove. You know, and he just there are some other midfielders who will be delighted to have some of his numbers at the moment. Well, let's roll it along then, and we've decided to bring back for this season the Golden Boot race, right? Because we got to bring the Golden Boot race back, of course, at some point. But this feels like the right time. But I think we got to really look at how we treat Haaland, because we got to separate him off of the rest of the race. And when we were thinking about bringing this into the show, you know, you clearly understand why you got to try and separate this guy off, because if you look at this graphic here, right, this graphic doesn't contain any duds. You know, this graphic contains the likes of Alan Shearer and Thierry Henry and Didier Drogba, and you go all the way back. You go all through all the Premier League strikers, Sergio Aguero, go all the way back.
Mo Salah.
Look. Don't worry about Salah.
That's the record.
Don't worry about him. He's too disappointing to mention in this floor, man. But if you look at the trajectory of how all those guys ended up as the Golden Boot winners, you know, what is incredible is at the moment, Haaland is outperforming all of them. And you just got to say, well, this guy's off the charts. Yeah. Where could he possibly end up? 17 goals already. You know, wow.
I mean, there's not much that can be said that hasn't already been said, really. Like, the guy is just an absolute machine. Like, I think, like, when he blanked against Liverpool and then had to rest in the Champions League, I think it was after that, everybody was worried about the week after, which is why it's even more confusing that you didn't captain him, because, like, you're seeing a Haaland that hasn't.
Okay, you've made your point.
Like, goodness me, this guy's going to come out and have a field day in his next game. But man, he really is something else. And it's weird watching him sometimes, because you forget just how young he actually is, because of how big and how energetic and how monstrous the guy is. He's like, what, 22?
21.
But do you think he's exposing the frailties of the league, or do you just think he's exceptional?
I don't know, man. Like, he's.
I've seen some people say this is a farmers' league and all that kind of thing. You know?
Well, I think
it's the fact that he's in the most dominant squad as well. So it doesn't really prove that much in terms of the weaknesses of the league, because I think if you put Kane in that City team, he wouldn't be on 17.
And he might have been in that City team, don't forget.
Exactly. And I think Kane would be getting stupidly similar numbers, maybe even with more assists, so 12 goals, 10 assists with how Kane plays. So I think that striker spot was destined to get a lot of chances, but obviously Haaland has taken it to the next level. But we are seeing a player who will be the next great of the game. So it is important to realize that.
Man, this guy stays fit this season, we could be looking at some incredible numbers like we've never seen before. And I think, you know, the Premier League have done the right thing by starting already to pull this out and put it in the context of what we have seen in previous seasons. Mm-hmm. Because when I saw this, I was like, wow, yeah, we know he's good. But this confirms exactly how good he is. You know, when you compare him to what he is tracking compared to the other Golden Boot winners, it is just, a spectacle. So it's going to be, and of course, he's not going to the World Cup, is he?
Exactly.
You know? So he'll be putting his feet up. Yeah, he'll be putting his feet up, having a good break, and back rearing to go. So Haaland is leading the charge on 17, but you know, it is a race. There are other people in it, right? And I think the one that has probably caught us by surprise that we were mentioning earlier is Kane has got 10 goals already in the league this season.
Any other season that would be highlighted and lauded, but just because of Haaland, it's just gone under the radar.
Especially the way they're playing as well. Like, you just wouldn't expect Kane to already be at double figures in the league.
How is he getting these goals in that squad? The one that is also standing up for me is Mitrovic, because we know that there has been a lot of talk about him historically, how he can't do it in the Premier League. He scores a bundle of goals in the Championship. But I actually think this season he's working it out. And he's looking really, really, really good. He had a little spell on the sideline there a few weeks ago, but he's looking really, really good. And looking as though he's going to push Kane all the way.
It'll be fun to watch. Like, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much people focus on the race that is still there. Like, because I think it's kind of accepted now that Haaland is totally running away with it. But this is still quite a close race for silver, let's say.
Yeah, silver group.
Silver group. Yeah, there's only one person in the golden race, right? And then there's a silver group. Your guy Firmino, man, is bringing up the radar. We only look at the top 6 because that's where it's usually likely to be destined.
It just speaks to the fact that he bailed us out especially towards the start of the season. I think now that Núñez is back, I'm sure in no time we'll see Núñez and Salah back up there.
Nah, you banking a lot on this guy Núñez, and
he'll come good.
I hear you. I
mean, the performance he's been doing in the Champions League as well. It's just it all points to once he really settles down. He still doesn't know the language, which is a big barrier. I've seen interviews and. You need the translator on the training pitch, which is I think causing a bit of a. It just doesn't help you settle in, does it? If you can't really communicate like that. So I think once he does settle down, he's a young player still, and second half of the season I expect him to do good. He's going to the World Cup. Hopefully, he can have a good World Cup, and he'll be there.
Well, you would hope that there are two big names missing from this compared to last season. The likes of Son and Salah. And it's incredible that they are nowhere to be seen yet.
But I think where we expected Kane to be this time last season, and he was absolutely nowhere to be seen. But I mean, that's in the past, isn't it?
I have no doubt that both Son and Salah, they're so good that eventually by the end of the season, I can almost assure they'll be in the top 5. Yeah,
I probably would agree. You know? And we've got to also put a word in there for Ivan Toney, who has been getting better and better every season, and 8 in the league already, looking good, looking quite solid. And I think that he too will be pushing Kane all the way if Brentford can serve him well, because I was a little bit disappointed in their last game against Villa. I actually thought that would have been a good game for them to really go and step it up a level, but sadly it just didn't happen.
That is a problem I've been seeing with Brentford. Like, I've had my eye on them since the United game where they just pummeled them. And what's interesting about Brentford is that while Toney is an absolute class act, he's a fantastic player. I think a lot of time he doesn't get the service that he needs. And it's a strange thing to talk about, because in no way are Brentford a one-man team. You just couldn't describe them as that. But it gets to the point sometimes where you watch Brentford and you're like, man, Toney could just do so much better.
Well, do you remember when Eriksen played for them for 6 months and Toney exploded? There's no doubt. Like, if they had that creator in the team, they'd be on another level again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of what they're missing. So it was your chance then, Imran, last weekend to look across the team of the week. So let's understand who you've gone for and why.
It was a nice team of the week, actually, because I got to pick a lot of the underrated players, because look at the teams across the board there. They're not the ones that are always in the generic ones. Not many top 6. I think there's only is it only Haaland?
Haaland, okay.
Yeah, it is only Haaland from the top 6. So yeah, it's a pretty unique team of the week. And so starting off in goal, painfully, I must say.
Had a great game.
Really good game. I think Van Dijk, it's a weird game. Van Dijk could have had a hat-trick.
Could have.
Just from set pieces, but this guy would not let them in. I think there's one save towards the very end where Alisson was forward, where Van Dijk had a free header and Henderson
Great
saved it
save.
really well. So yeah, what a performance by him.
It's really funny about Henderson. I'm not going to promise that this is the last time I'll bring up an FPL statistic, but Henderson has actually got the most points by a considerable distance for any keeper in the Fantasy Premier League.
Oh, really?
And it's interesting because Forest the bottom, obviously, but Henderson by far has, I think it's by a good 10 points. And I know for a fact it's because he saved, I think it's maybe 3 penalties this season, but he still has the most saves this season. For any
he faces the most shots.
Exactly. And so, like, even though you don't want to, he is going to bag you a lot of points, which is a weird one because Forest concede a lot. But
I agree,
he's got the most points. It's a weird conundrum.
And then
across the back.
Moving on to Trippier, I think what a signing this guy's been. He's like
resurgent, man.
Yeah, key man. I think v Spurs, he had 100 touches of the ball, which for a right back is like something you see from a top 6 club right back like Trent or Cancelo, just dictating the play as a right back. And I think he also managed to pull off an incredible clearance off the line. So yeah, what a performance. Konsa at the back, he kept a clean sheet. 6 clearances, 3 blocks, 3 tackles. So it was a very busy performance from him, trying to keep Tony quiet, and he did that successfully. And they'd been on bad form, but obviously the resurgent Villa did well. Looking at Zuma, he got a goal and a clean sheet, and I think he's pretty much the main centre back at West Ham now. They did sign the French centre back, and they had Dawson, but I think Zuma's established himself as the main guy in that West Ham defence. And coupling with him is Aaron Cresswell, who, like Trippier, is such a key fullback in a team. And he goes under the radar, obviously, because you never hear him in the England shouts of Chilwell and Shaw, but he's such a good creator. They kept a clean sheet, and Cresswell created 3 chances. I think his set-piece delivery is second to none as well. And then looking at the midfield, went 4 across. Almiron, wow. We've talked about him a lot, I think. Just electric all of a sudden, and took his goal really well.
Game has changed this season.
Yeah, we need to delve on him more than we already have. Look in the middle, two really good performances. Iwobi, I think
he's resurgent this season, man.
This centre mid Iwobi arc is just incredible. I think he got 2 assists, 3 chances created, 2 big chances created. I think this role really suits him, and all credit to Frank Lampard for finding the role that gets the best out of Iwobi, because he's honestly up there with some of the best creative midfielders in terms of numbers this season. And if he continues it, then he could actually get a move, I don't know, back to Arsenal or something like that. I think, would you take him back?
he has got the second most assists this season.
Does he? Really? Wow. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
I'm sure if he continues to do a great job at Everton.
Looking at the 2 Fulham lads, Andreas Pereira, they signed him from Manchester United, and he has been one of their best players this season. And what performance on the weekend. He got 2 assists, similar to Iwobi, 4 chances created and 2 clear-cut chances created, which is just, he's the main focal creator for that team. And what a performance. And looking who's coupled with Willian.
Rolling back the years.
Cannot believe I'm putting Willian in the 2022 Team of the Week. I think, I don't even know how old he is now, 34, maybe older. And he got a goal and a big chance created. I think Mark will have a very different opinion of Willian that compared to Kyle, based on the. I
haven't got any problems with Willian, you know.
Really?
It just never happened for him.
Well, your fault. He signed an aging winger.
It just didn't happen for him.
Yeah, fair enough. And looking at the front 2, Danny Ings, I think he still is Villa's best striker. I think I'd still take him over Watkins. He does bag goals, but obviously Villa have been so poor that we've just not seen the best Danny Ings at all.
Yeah. That might be coming though.
I agree. If Unai Emery if anyone could get the best out of him, it would be Unai Emery. So we could see a resurgent Ings. He got 2 goals. I think one was a penalty, but he just.
If he can stay fit.
Of course, that's always.
Which is always his challenge.
Yeah. And then Haaland, we don't need to say too much about, do we? Once again, just bullied them. And then obviously manager Eddie Howe, we did touch upon this earlier as well. This Newcastle team is so well drilled, and they look like they're really fighting for the club and fighting for the manager. And I think
they are
really
they're playing for him. They're absolutely playing for him, and you know it looks like a really good project that he's got in hand there, and a really fantastic team with more to come. So into the focus and in feature this week, we've got 2 keepers, 2 men in the 300 club. And note that David DeGea racked up his 500th appearance for United over the last couple of weeks, which I thought was quite phenomenal. And it really made us look at, you know, what's happening with keeper situations across the league and who's going to the World Cup and who isn't, because De Gea hasn't made it to the 50 players in the squad for Spain, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to look at the numbers when it comes to these guys. I thought Lloris didn't have a very good game against Newcastle, actually. And when you look down the numbers, right there at the bottom, errors leading to goals is where I think Lloris lets himself down every single season. You are guaranteed that he's going to make at least 2 or 3 errors, which is really, a bit sad. But I think they're both incredible keepers. What do you make of the two of them?
I mean, it's interesting because I think there are certain keepers who are good enough to almost hide behind that stat. The one that I leap at immediately is Ederson, because I think Ederson, for me, is one of the most mistake-prone keepers in the league.
What?
He's so good that he can almost hide behind it. Because if you actually look at the goals that City conceded, a lot of them come from that near post that he conceded over the weekend was unbelievable. Like it's stuff like that where you look at it and you think, no, Ederson is good enough to be better than that, but he just makes the mistake on the day, and you tell yourself that you'll move on, and then in another 2 or 3 weeks, same or similar thing happens. But he's a good enough keeper to hide behind it. But I think Lloris and De Gea, to an extent, he's just past that. Like I think they're just a bit. Their mistakes outweigh the class.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that stood out for me as well is headed clearances. It seems kind of unusual, but when you think about how Spurs playing and how often you see Lloris top of the 18-yard box having to come out, you can see how the headed clearances and errors leading to goals are almost in combination with each other. But I think I honestly think that there have been 2 solid keepers who are probably coming to the end of their life in the league.
Of course, it's 2 of the greatest keepers the Premier has ever seen, and
I think so.
And I think, well, that point about the headed clearances, actually, I just noticed that I think it speaks a lot to how De Gea is becoming a bit expired in the modern day game, where you want your keepers keeping all the time. You want your keepers like
he's not a sweeper.
Exactly. He's more of an old school type of keeper, and those errors leading to goals, I can guarantee like over 70% would have been in the last 3 years, where he's just been on a steady decline. And I think sooner rather than later, Ten Hag will try and phase him out and get a more ball-playing keeper, whether we see it next summer or the summer after. But what a servant both of them have been for their clubs. And I think Lloris will still be going to France as their captain in the World Cup.
Yeah, he's just incredible. I mean, I think they're both very, very good keepers. But I just think, sometimes, and Carl just mentioned there the point about beating on the near post, which does happen to goalkeepers from time to time. I think these 2 have been pretty outstanding, actually. And, David De Gea has probably seen better days in the league, but he is still pretty solid, and he's more of a shot stopper more so than a goalkeeper who's going to start the attack from the back, which is pretty prevalent in the Premier League these days. But again, Lloris himself is also pretty solid, and he's a French international, he's a World Cup winner, and the only place he hasn't won anything
exactly, England
is at Spurs. But you got to rate them both. Excellent keepers.
One thing you do have to consider is the way the 2 teams play in United and Spurs. The 2 keepers face a lot of shots, and I think fans not of just the 2 teams, but football in general, seem to almost disregard that and just look at the keeper performance over the almost a highlight reel, basically, and they see the goals that they concede and they're like, well, he should be saving that, he should be saving that. And they don't really look at the saves that they make. It's almost similar to like when people just the people who don't really watch games and just look at stats. Like people you see the same thing almost with midfielders sometimes, where a midfielder can almost control a game and put in a man of the match performance, but have 0 assists and like maybe 2 or 3 key through balls that lead to nothing, and you're like, well, what was the point of the game then? How is he getting man of the match? It's stuff like that. But you see it a lot more with keepers, and I think these 2, for the jobs that they have, I think that does go under the radar quite a lot.
Yeah, brilliant. And we wait and see how much longer we will see them both in the Premier League. So let's go down then into the what is remaining of October, as we go through the fixtures, kicking off at Arsenal. We had a draw with Southampton that I was very, very annoyed with, but I'll take a point. It felt as though we let ourselves down there quite badly. Then we've gone and lost to PSV in the week 3-0, and now we've got Forest at the Emirates this weekend. So Forest, I think, is going to be quite a big test, but I would still expect us to win at home against Forest. So I'm expecting 3 points. And then, of course, we're closing out the month against Chelsea, which I think is going to be a very, very difficult game at the Bridge. A midday kickoff on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And we will have Aubameyang, who might come off the bench. We don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. But if at this point you had said to me, this is what October would look like for us right at the beginning, because you guys remember I said this is going to be a very, very difficult month for us.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that, actually. We haven't lost a game in October. I feel as though we're starting to show the signs of a little bit of fatigue, and the World Cup probably can't come quick enough for Arsenal, to be honest.
Tell you what, though, if you do drop points this weekend, I think it could actually destroy your.
This is the weekend we can't afford to drop.
Yeah.
That's why I was so annoyed last week, because I thought we had those 3 points in the bag, but Southampton did well. So we're doing okay. I'm happy with the October that we've had at Arsenal. So I'm just going to pass the baton on to Kyle, who's going to probably say he's not happy with what we've had at the Bridge.
I mean, we hadn't conceded for I think at all until the United game the other day, and I was. The thing is, under the circumstances, I wasn't mad about the draw, because although no one should debate that we were the better team against United, because we were. But I think the draw was the result was likely. But to get the penalty in the 87th minute and then lose the game.
Yeah.
We didn't lose it, but it felt like a loss because of the circumstances. And so that really just, it's been on my mind for the whole week, really. But, I'm actually quite pleased. And Potter
settled in well.
Yeah, I mean, we've conceded against United, and then we conceded in the week in the Champions League game. But the choice that everybody seems to be rattling on about was, choosing to start Kepa ahead of Mendy, and he stuck with it. And man, Kepa is
inspired.
Something else, man.
He is holding on to that shirt.
That performance against Villa was insane.
Although I will say Mendy saves that Casemiro header.
You know what? I actually agree. But not credit though. That was a fantastic header.
It was a good header.
I rewatched after I calmed down. I rewatched it and I was like, that is a genuinely good goal because it was. But it's just
well, look. Potter goes back to Brighton this weekend. Are you guys going to give him a good? Is he going to get a good reception? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how, because I don't think the Brighton fans are going to be too, hard done by. I think they'll be happy to welcome him back. Like what he did at Brighton is incredible. I mean, if he'd stayed, it would have only been more incredible. So I think it would be quite sad if the Brighton fans give him a bit of a hard time. I mean, I guess you will come to expect it if the game goes a certain way. Either side, to be honest. But, and then the Arsenal game that we've just spoken about is filling me with a bit of dread because that is never.
Oh, come on, man! It's too far away. You've got plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Not even 2 weeks. It's next Sunday.
You got plenty of time to get yourself together. Come on. Well, we won't always say pulling up the rear, Imran, but come on. You've had a bit of a mixed October, I would say.
Very mixed October. We were finally getting a decent run together, beating Rangers, then City, big win, and West Ham scraping through. But the West Ham result kind of papered over the cracks. You could tell that we weren't still on it for various reasons, still chopping and changing the formation. And then the blow against Forest was we have no Thiago. And Thiago right now is our only consistent good midfielder. Henderson, Fabinho are really off it. And apart from that, we literally have only kids. And that showed. I think the loss of Darwin was big as well. We need him as a nuisance up front. He was getting into form. He scored the winner v West Ham. And despite us losing to Arsenal, I think he was pretty good v Arsenal in terms of his hold-up, got his goal as well. Looking at the Leeds game, as I said earlier, I think if we were away, I'd be scared. But the fact that we're at home brings me a bit.
I think Leeds will give you a game. I think Leeds will give you a game.
Give us a game, but I think
really
now
think
that we've got Thiago and Nunes back in, I am confident finally of a win. But I always end up saying this, and then we always disappoint. So I'm not gonna be too hopeful of anything. But yeah, we should be getting the win. Realistically, we have to take 9 points from our last 3 games if we want to finish on a good note. I think we have Leeds and Spurs, which will be a big test.
Don't worry.
And yeah, well, we'll see. I think we will dominate that game, but whether we can deal with the counter threat of Kane is the big one. But yeah, I mean, the less said about the season so far, the better.
Speed is insane.
Yeah, but it felt as though he was starting to turn it around with the 2 wins. You know, had we been looking at 3 wins, we would definitely be saying, you know, Liverpool are really motoring back.
Yeah.
But that was a real halt in progress, I felt, with Forest really showing how it can be done. So let's see, because there were a number of factors in there as well as injuries and you know, these squad depth and players not performing as well, etc. So let's see what happens tomorrow when you're at home. You know, what's happened to Diaz, by the way? What's going on?
He is out until definitely after the World Cup. I don't know if he'll be back for Boxing Day, but the bigger miss is Diogo Jota. I think he might be out for a long term. So I think it might be until March. The luck just does not fall our way.
No, Jurgen hasn't got the depth in squad, man.
It's crazy because, like, you're starting to see it on FPL now that the faith in Liverpool has just dropped. Like,
it's gone.
none of the top teams have even one Liverpool player, and I've just seen that the most sold player this weekend is Mohamed Salah.
Yeah,
of course, and I was one of the people who sold him.
I think in terms of injuries, the Jota one was the big killer because I think the fact that he will be out until March he was playing well when he came in. So yeah, I think that is the big blow. We don't have a proper left winger right now, but it'll make it work. We played a diamond formation against Ajax the other day.
Well, we will get through these fixtures and we'll then see what happens with the next 6. So into the weekend we go then. Game week 14 kicks off with Leicester against Man City. Now we've got one of these strange situations in the FPL where it's been showing all week that Haaland is 75%.
Yeah.
Doubtful. Let's see what people will do. But we've picked out Newcastle against Aston Villa as potentially one of the games of the weekend. You know, Unai Emery, as we said earlier, who was, you know, kind of looking at the Newcastle job but turned it down.
Yeah.
And Villa rebounding last weekend after the sacking of Gerrard. And of course, Newcastle having a fantastic result against Spurs. So this has got all the pieces for a really good game at Newcastle. What do you think?
It's going to be a feisty one.
I think so.
It's going to be one of those games where you expect a lot of goals, but I'm not too sure if there will be because you know you got 2 very, very good keepers in Martinez and Pope. So we will see just how many goals are in the game.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting fixture as well is Fulham against Everton, where I think Fulham are absolutely flying at the moment and doing really, really well. Frank also seemed to be getting something out of Everton. Yeah. And you've got another tasty mid-table battle there that I think will be quite a good game this weekend before Sunday's 2 fixtures with Arsenal and Forest and United against West Ham, which is always a one-sided affair. So we shall see. So let's bring up the table and see where we are as we head into this game week. You can see there at the top, you know, let me just bring it up so you can see it properly. Arsenal are still heading the top of the league by 2 points and desperately need 3 points this weekend.
Yeah.
In fact, City can go top if they win tomorrow at lunchtime. So and they probably will. And Spurs quietly going about their business there in third, and Newcastle running out the top 4. What's that?
Poor form from Spurs. If you look at the form there,
yeah, it's not great. You know, 3 losses in the last 5. They're not looking great, but they're still holding on to that 3rd position quite strongly. Yeah. And down at the bottom, we can see we haven't spoken about Wolverhampton Wanderers for a while, but they are going through a little bit of turmoil and looking very early as though, you know what, they're going to be scrapping for relegation this year because things are just not working at Wolves. And as you know, patchy as Forest's season has been, you can see they've got a couple of draws and a win. So they're not getting detached from that bottom half. Yeah. So really interesting week ahead.
Actually. They've got the best form of the bottom 3.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. So there's plenty of action this weekend to keep you guys entertained. So we will be across it. We'll be enjoying the game. We hope that you've enjoyed our show today. It's been fantastic to have you watching us here on the We Global Football Show on YouTube, or if you've been joining us on Facebook. Remember, you can always share the show. watch it back and send it along so others can join us. So this has been the Football Show with me, Mark, Imran, and Kyle, and we look forward to catching you on the next one in a few weeks' time. Bye for now.
Bye.